everyone. Welcome back to The Victim's Voice. I'm your host, Lorelei. Today's case is out of Blunttville, Tennessee, and it's one that most people in the true crime space have heard about because of an Amber Alert that went out 5 years ago. The case was recently in the news again because of the trial, and then just very recently, 6 months after the trial, the final sentencing happened. Even though the trial and sentencing are over, we are still left with the biggest question of all unanswered. How could a seemingly good mother, one whom everyone said loved her 1 year old daughter, throw her away like a piece of trash and go on with her life like her daughter never existed? We may never know the answer to that question, and any answer would not be reasonable to most of us because no child deserves this. The only thing that we can do is to give this little girl her voice back and share her story. So, this is the story of Evelyn May Boswell. Megan Boswell was born March 21st, 2001, to parents Tommy and Angela Boswell. She had an older brother named Tommy Jr. and two younger siblings named Elijah and Charlotte. Megan didn't have it easy growing up. Her parents had substance abuse problems along with a lot of domestic violence issues. So it's fair to say that Megan had a rough childhood. Because of their issues, Tommy and Angela were in and out of jail, and though Megan lacked the discipline and the positive influence that a child needs from their parents, she was lucky to have her grandparents, Danny and Mary Boswell, to help raise her and give her a stable environment to grow up in. All the grandkids loved their grandpa and grandma, even giving Grandma Mary the loving nickname Oh Mommy. And because Danny and Oh Mommy lived on the same 10-acre property on Muddy Creek Road as Tommy and Angela, she would still see her grandparents often and her parents. But she knew she always had her grandparents if things got chaotic. Tommy and Angela were on again, off again for most of Megan's teenage years. They had gotten divorced in 2014 when Megan was 13, but got back together shortly after that and stayed together until 2018, when Megan was 17 years old. This is when they split up permanently. Megan's younger siblings were born during that time that Angela and Tommy had gotten back together, and they stayed at Tommy's when Angela moved out for good. After Angela left, Megan was the one who cared for her younger siblings most of the time, since Tommy was always working. At some point, Megan decided to go live with her mom. While with Angela, Megan had little to no supervision. In March of 2018, she found out that she was pregnant and said that the father was her boyfriend, Ethan, who was a year older than her and the guy that she had dated all through high school. Megan never gave it a second thought as to whether she was going to keep her baby. Even though she was only 17, she was excited to become a mother and told people that the baby gave her a reason to wake up every day. But during this time that she was living with her mother, Megan was not going to school on a regular basis and eventually was considered truant. In the fall of 2018, the state stepped in and put Megan, who at that time was almost 7 months pregnant, into foster care. This is when Megan was sent to the home of her foster mother, Gail Kite, to live with, but was still able to visit her father on the weekends. According to what Gail said during the trial, Megan had not been taking care of herself before she got to Gail's home. Despite being 7 months pregnant, she was super skinny and didn't look pregnant at all. Her hair was so matted to her head and filled with lice that Gail couldn't get a brush through it and had to have someone cut it off. Gail started taking Megan to regular doctor's appointments and making sure she had nutritious meals so that she would gain some weight. While still in foster care, on November 21st, 2018, Megan gave birth to her daughter, Evelyn May Boswell. Everyone in Megan's life said that from what they witnessed, Megan seemed to love her little girl more than anything. Though she was young and sometimes needed to be reminded to change the baby's diaper or buckle her properly into her car seat, Evelyn was always clean and wore cute little outfits with matching bows in her hair. Megan took Evelyn to the pediatrician anytime she was sick and for all of her well visits, and there were never any concerns. Evelyn was meeting all of her milestones early, and Megan's social media was flooded with pictures of her daughter that she seemed to be so proud of. Megan took Evelyn everywhere with her. Anytime Megan's friends and family saw her, Evelyn was right there by her side. She was the sweetest and cutest little girl with bright blue eyes who, according to Megan, loved baths, car rides, and Baby Shark. Here is a post that Megan wrote on her Facebook page in September of 2019, talking about baby Evelyn and the amount of influence she has had on Megan's life. Quote, I'm not the best mom in the world, but I try so hard for this little beauty. I can't even explain the love that I feel for her, and I know she loves me too. Lately, my life's been kind of sucky, but she'll come reach for me and say, Mom, Mom, and my heart melts. And I'm reminded of her unconditional love. You can say whatever you want about being a young mom, but I promise you, my life is so much better with this angel. My life wasn't ruined when I had her. She gave me a purpose and a reason to wake up every day and to better myself. There's no love like the love from your child. End quote. No matter the circumstances of her own childhood, it seemed to everyone that Megan wanted to give her child everything that she never had growing up, and that she truly loved little Evelyn. In February of 2019, Megan left Gail's home and moved back in with her dad, Tommy. Tommy had seemingly turned his life around and was doing everything that he could for his kids. He was in a relationship with a woman named Ashley, and they had recently gotten engaged. He also had his own paving company that was doing well and had custody of Megan's younger siblings, Elijah and Charlotte. He had done everything he could to get Megan and his granddaughter out of foster care, and he succeeded. But things didn't go well when Megan and Evelyn moved in with Tommy and his fiancee, Ashley. He and Megan butted heads a lot, especially about cleaning her room. Eventually, after another huge blowout, Megan left Tommy's home, and she and Evelyn began staying at Omami's trailer down the hill from the main house. Even though he and Megan didn't see eye to eye, Tommy wanted to help his daughter and especially his granddaughter. He knew it was hard to be a single parent, especially at 18 years old. Ethan, Evelyn's dad, had left to join the army just a few days after he graduated, so he really wasn't in the picture per se. He and Megan were still together and wrote to each other often, but he wasn't able to help her with Evelyn at the time. So Tommy talked to his son, Tommy Jr., who owned a trailer park on Sugar Hollow Road, down the road from Muddy Creek property. They decided to fix up one of the empty trailers for Megan and Evelyn to live in. A sort of fresh start, if you will. She didn't have to pay any rent, and Tommy agreed to pay her utilities and even bought her a brand new 2018 Chevy Cruze so that Megan had dependable transportation for her and her daughter. Even with her chaotic childhood, Megan had a lot of support when it came to being a young mother. Her dad set her up to stand on her own 2 feet. All Megan had to do was take the initiative. Many young mothers would love to have this kind of support, or even a fraction of it. But Megan seemed to take advantage of the situation and never appeared grateful for what her dad and brother had done for her. Megan moved into the trailer on Sugar Hollow Road in September of 2019. Everything seemed to be going good for Megan and Evelyn in the first few months of living there. Evelyn seemed to be a happy baby who was well taken care of. But then things started changing. Tommy saw Megan and Evelyn on Thanksgiving that year, which in 2019 was on November 28th. Everything seemed normal on that day. Evelyn looked happy, and Megan seemed to be doing good. Then, on December 2nd, Megan got a job at a new restaurant, Hunter T's Chicken Shack. She messaged her foster mom, Gail's sister, Sue Witten, on December 3rd and asked if she could start watching Evelyn for her while she worked. Sue agreed to watch her and later testified in court that she had watched Evelyn for the next 3 or 4 days after Megan had asked her to. But something seemed to have shifted in Megan's care of Evelyn, and it seemed to be in line with when she started the job at the chicken shack. Every time Megan brought Evelyn over to Sue's, she was covered in dirt from head to toe and smelled of urine. She also had a diaper rash that was so bad that there were little blisters on Evelyn's bottom and scratch marks from where she had scratched herself to the point that she had made herself bleed. Megan's foster sister, Casey, who was Gail's daughter and Sue's niece, worked for the pediatrician's office where Evelyn was a patient. So Sue sent pictures of Evelyn's rash to Casey. Casey, who had seen a lot of diaper rashes in her line of work, said Evelyn's was the worst she had ever seen. After 3 or 4 days of Sue watching Evelyn, Megan quit dropping her off and sent Sue a text telling her that she no longer needed her to babysit. This would have been around the 6th of December in 2019. On the 5th of December, Evelyn was supposed to go to a well child visit at the pediatrician's office, but Megan and Evelyn never showed up. When Casey texted Megan about it, Megan said she thought it was the next day and asked if they could reschedule. So they made the appointment for December 11th. But Megan and Evelyn never showed up then either. Casey reached out to Megan and said that the doctor was getting concerned because they didn't want Evelyn to get behind on her shots. Megan then told Casey that she was finding a pediatrician closer to home so that they wouldn't be back. What was strange, though, was that no other pediatrician office ever reached out to them to get Evelyn's medical records. Megan's friend, Caitlin Carter, would later testify in court that she went out to Chili's with Megan and Evelyn the first week of December, most likely on December 6th, according to the school schedule. Evelyn did not look good during this dinner. Evelyn had dirty hands and a dirty face, along with her clothes being filthy. She stated that she could smell Evelyn from across the booth where they were sitting, and she had a strong smell of urine. Megan was not concerned at the time about her daughter's hygiene, though. She was busy telling Caitlin all about the guy that she had started seeing from Hunter T's chicken shack, and it was none other than Hunter T himself. Preston Hunter Wood, known as Hunter, was a year older than Megan. Though he liked for people to think that he was the owner of Hunter T's Chicken Shack, we would later find out that it was actually his dad that owned it. Hunter was just a regular employee, not even a manager. It seemed that Megan and Hunter's relationship started out hot and heavy and very quick, and that this was also the beginning of the end for Evelyn. Megan went for an interview at the Chicken Shack on December 2nd and started working on December 3rd. On her second week of work, she told Hunter's dad, Randy, that she had a doctor's appointment to get to, but that her car had been repossessed, so she had no way to get there. Now remember, Megan's dad bought her a car and paid cash for it. So unless it was him that repossessed the car, this was probably not true. But either way, Randy felt sorry for Megan, so he told Hunter to take her to her doctor appointment. And that's all it took. Megan was obsessed with Hunter Wood. She even changed her name on one of her Facebook pages to Maggie Wood. Maggie was a nickname she went by. Can you say creepy stalker? After this, Megan started working lots and lots of hours at the chicken shack, basically open to close. And she would come in early to help set everything up with Hunter. Then she would stay after they closed to help him clean. She told one of her friends that she would be at the shack sometimes from 4:30 a.m. until about 10:30 p.m. And then she still didn't go home. She would stay the night with Hunter. So who was watching Evelyn while Megan was working these long hours and staying at night with Hunter? Remember, after 3 or 4 days, she quit bringing her to Sue's. Well, what she told Randy Wood and Hunter Wood was that she could work all the hours they needed her to because little Evelyn was with her dad, Ethan Perry. This is also what she told her friends and family over the next couple of months because her dad and her family hadn't seen Evelyn since Thanksgiving, and no one had seen Evelyn since the first or second week of December. According to Megan, Ethan had Evelyn, but her story would slightly differ depending on who she was talking to. To some people, she said Ethan was out of the military and that she and Ethan were splitting custody. To others, she said that he was on a leave from the military and that he was keeping Evelyn for a couple of months to bond with her. And to even more people, she said that she and Ethan were in a custody battle, and that he had filed for emergency custody of Evelyn and won because he had seen some bruises on her. Also, in early January of 2020, Tommy had realized that Megan had barely been staying in the trailer. She had told everyone that she had moved in with Hunter. No one really knows where Megan was staying from the middle of December until the end of February. Hunter lived with his dad, Randy, and he would later say that Megan only stayed at his house 3 or 4 times. It was discovered that Hunter and Megan had filled out an application for an apartment sometime in January. In the space where it asked how many residents would be living there, they had put 3. You may think it's obvious who the 3 are, but we will be talking more about that later. Tommy told her if she wasn't going to stay at the trailer anymore, then she needed to move her things out so that they could rent it to someone else. So Megan went and got what she needed out of the trailer and left the rest for her family to deal with. This just shows how unappreciative Megan was for her family's help. Tommy Sr. had to have someone that worked for his paving company go and clean out the trailer. And when I say it was filthy, that is by all means an understatement. There was feces, food, dirty diapers, trash everywhere. It was ridiculous. Megan continued to tell her stories about where Evelyn was over the next couple of months. It ranged from Ethan having her to she was in foster care, or Ethan's grandparents had her, or even Hunter's mom had her. But by February 16th, Tommy Boswell was missing his granddaughter, and Megan's stories just weren't making sense. He had told Megan that he was proud of Ethan for standing up and taking responsibility for his daughter, but that enough was enough, and that he couldn't keep Evelyn forever, and that Megan needed to get her back. Megan told Tommy to give her a couple of days. A couple of days came and went, and Evelyn was still nowhere to be found. So, Tommy Boswell called DCFS and told them he hadn't seen his granddaughter since November 28th and that he believed his daughter had been lying to him about where she was. Authorities went to the Boswells' compound on Muddy Creek Road and had Tommy fill out a statement. After this, they went to find Megan and see what was going on. This is when things started to get wild, and everyone realized that when Megan's lips were moving, she was lying. Police tracked down Megan at Hunter's home and asked her a few questions. Hunter wasn't there at the time, but Megan told them she was living with him and that Ethan had the baby for the time being, but that she would be getting her back very soon. When they asked about Evelyn's belongings and if Megan had anything at Hunter's house for Evelyn, something to show that she was going to get her daughter back, she showed them a brand new outfit that still had the tags on it and a quote unquote memory box, as Megan called it. That had a few things in it like Evelyn's footprints and handprints. She didn't show them any clothes that Evelyn had already worn, no toys, no swing, no stroller, no pack and play, and no crib. Just one brand new outfit in a memory box. If she was planning on getting Evelyn back, then where were all of Evelyn's things? That is a mystery we will soon learn the answer to. They brought Megan to the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department to question her further and in more detail. She told them the same thing she had told everyone else. Ethan Perry had Evelyn. She said that he took her when he was home for Christmas. The detective said with some snark, "So you're telling me that you gave the baby that you have taken care of for the last year to a man who she doesn't know at all?" And of course, Megan said she wanted to give Ethan a chance to be a dad, and she also wanted a break after doing everything by herself for the last year. First of all, there are a lot of moms out there that do it by themselves for 18 years, a lot longer than the 1 year that Megan did. And she wasn't doing it alone. When she lived on the family compound, she had her dad and his fiancee, Ashley, helping her. All Tommy asked was that Megan clean her room. That's it. She also had her grandmother, Omami, who lived on the property. But she didn't have to stay there long because Tommy and Tommy Jr. gifted Megan a trailer and Tommy bought her a brand new car. I know that being a single teenage mother is hard, but let's face it, Megan didn't have it bad at all. And I don't believe that any mother would just hand over her 1-year-old child to anyone, not even the child's father, who hasn't been in the child's life consistently, and not even check to see how things are going and not lay eyes on your child for months and just hope for the best. Sullivan County law enforcement wasn't buying it either and wasted no time to make contact with Ethan Perry. They contacted Ethan and his superiors in Louisiana, where they found that he was still in the Army and living at the Army barracks. Needless to say, he didn't have Evelyn staying in the Army barracks with him, and he had never actually had her at all. In fact, the only time he had ever got to meet Evelyn was the one time that while he was stationed in Texas, Megan drove down, uninvited, I might add, to see him. He didn't even see Evelyn at Christmas time when he was in town because Megan said she had the flu and was with her grandma, which we know that is a lie because none of Megan's family had seen Evelyn since Thanksgiving. So on the 20th, detectives called Megan in to have another interview. They told her that they had made contact with Ethan and that he did not have Evelyn. Megan swore that Ethan was whom she left Evelyn with, no one else. She tried to get the detectives to believe that Ethan had Evelyn on the 26th of December, and when he refused to give her back because they got into a fight, she was going to call law enforcement. But her mother, Angela, talked her out of it. And to add on to that story, she now believed that Ethan had given Evelyn to Angela. She said she believed that her mom and her mom's new boyfriend, William McLeod, took off with Evelyn after picking her up from Ethan. This didn't fly with the detectives, though, and they told Megan that they knew Ethan had never had Evelyn at all. That's when she told them that she was going to tell them the truth. Megan then admitted that Ethan had never had Evelyn, but that her mom did have Evelyn. She said her mom had stayed with her a couple of days while she was babysitting while she worked. And on the night of December 10th, Megan came home and Angela and Will were gone with Evelyn. She said that her mom believed that she had taken money off of her debit card and said that she was basically taking Evelyn as collateral, saying that she wasn't going to give her back until Megan paid her back the money that she had taken. She described to detectives the car that Angela and William were driving, a silver BMW. An Amber Alert was sent out February 19th. This is the Amber Alert that brought attention to this case. On February 20th, Hunter Wood, Megan's infamous boyfriend and the quote unquote owner of the chicken shack, sat down for an interview with the media so he could set the record straight. Apparently, people were calling and coming to the chicken shack and harassing him, saying that he did something to Evelyn. Well, from what Hunter told the reporter, he had never even met Evelyn. He had seen pictures of her, but that was it. Megan had been lying to him and told Hunter that Evelyn had been with her dad the entire time. Hunter also said that he and Megan's relationship wasn't serious and that they were off and on. I know they hadn't known each other that long, but it had to be pretty serious if they were trying to get an apartment together. I think at this point, Hunter just wanted to distance himself from Megan as much as possible. On February 21st of 2020, the day Evelyn would have turned 15 months old, Megan did her first interview. The media caught her as she was leaving the courthouse for an undisclosed reason at the time. We later find out that the judge had given Megan an order to give the court proof of life for Evelyn, or she was going to be held in contempt. During the media interview, they asked Megan about Evelyn. She told them that she liked to take baths and loves Baby Shark. She told them she couldn't talk about the ongoing investigation, but that Sullivan County and the TBI were sure they knew who Evelyn was with. She also mentioned the silver BMW. She then tells them that the reason that she never reported her daughter missing was because she knew the person who had her and was scared that they would run if she reported them, which she claimed that they had in fact done. Megan said that she was concerned with Evelyn's safety at that point because the person who had her had stopped answering phone calls and basically had disappeared. She didn't tell the reporter that the person who supposedly had Evelyn was her own mother. When asked if she had spoken to Evelyn's father and if he was being supportive, Megan shook her head no. Well, why in the fuck would he be supportive? After she tried to throw him under the bus and say that he had Evelyn, having the police show up at his barracks and embarrass him in front of everyone? And speaking of Ethan, when the police talked to him, they collected DNA. So when they did find Evelyn, they would also find out if he was really her father because he had his doubts and always had. Megan tells the reporter that the last time she had seen Evelyn was in December. But no matter who she is talking to, she can never give an exact date. It's always just December. I'm sorry, if my child was missing, I would know the exact date, what I ate that day, and every move I made would be etched in my brain forever because that was the last day I saw my kid. How do you not even remember the day? Megan is not showing any concern, any urgency, nothing at all. Every time anyone asks her about her last day with Evelyn, all she does is describe the last thing that Evelyn was wearing. I don't think she even listened to the question she was being asked. She said that she quit trusting this person around the time that law enforcement got involved because that's when they took off. Something about this interview is just creepy. Maybe it's because Megan looks like a younger version of Letitia Stout, or it's the evil little smirk that she can't get off of her face, even though she supposedly has no clue where her daughter is and hasn't seen her for 3 months. Also, on February 21st, law enforcement was able to track down the silver BMW that was being driven by William McLeod and Angela Boswell. There was no sign of Evelyn with the couple. Surprise, surprise. According to their statements, they had never had Evelyn. They were, however, arrested because the BMW they were driving had been reported stolen. The whole situation with the car is kind of confusing and still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The BMW was registered to a woman named Melissa Wood. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Melissa Wood is the mother of Hunter Wood, Megan's boyfriend. So, how did Angela and William get a car that belonged to Hunter's mom? Well, they told authorities that Megan gifted it to them. But according to Hunter's mom, when they appeared in court over the matter in June of 2020, Megan had expressed an interest in buying the car from her, and she was supposed to be test driving it and getting it inspected. Megan had no idea that Angela and William had the car until Megan told her. So it sounds like Megan set her mom and William up. But even so, why would Angela and William think that an 18-year-old single mom could gift someone a BMW? So on February 24th, Megan did another media interview with Channel 11 News. This one was done at a cemetery. Yes, you heard me right. At a cemetery. Megan had picked the location because it's where her best friend Madison, who had died 2 years before from smoking synthetic marijuana, was buried. The theory a lot of people had as to why Megan wanted this interview done at the cemetery was so that she could muster up a few real tears for the world to see if she thought about her deceased friend, because thinking about her missing daughter is obviously not enough for Megan to cry over. This is just a theory some people came up with, but it absolutely makes sense. In this interview, Megan once again talks about things Evelyn liked and disliked. She described her as a happy baby who hardly ever cried and who was very smart. She said that Evelyn started walking around 10 months old and at 6 months traded in her bottle for a sippy cup. According to Megan, Evelyn was the perfect baby. But where was she? This is the question everyone was asking, but also the question that Megan seemed unable to answer truthfully. The reporter then asked Megan to describe the last time she saw Evelyn and to tell her how the day went. Megan once again completely ignores that question. Instead, she says, I have told TBI where to find Evelyn, and if they don't go get her tonight, I'm going to go find her myself. So, wait a minute. You haven't seen your daughter for almost 3 months, and now you know where she is? But you haven't gone there to get her yet? Doesn't she realize this makes her look even worse? So, who is Megan accusing of having Evelyn now? Well, on the 23rd, when the police told Megan that they had found her mom and William and that Evelyn was not with them, but that they were being extradited back to Tennessee for the car theft charge, she once again had a different story. This time, it was that her mom did have Evelyn, but had dropped her off at a campground in Mendota, Virginia, to someone in a silver camper. She even said she was in the car with her mom at one point, and they were driving in the direction of Mendota. Megan said she asked her mom if she was taking her to Evelyn, but Angela wouldn't answer her. So, for whatever reason, Megan told Angela to let her out of the car, and Megan got a ride back to Bluntville. So there was a possibility that her mom was going to take her at least to the area of where she thought her daughter was. And instead of going along with her to maybe find her daughter that she hadn't seen in months, she decided not to go and get a ride back to Bluntville. So the authorities, like every other time, had to follow up on this lead that Megan gave them. They searched every campground and every silver camper in Mendota, but once again, they came back empty handed. This search for Evelyn was huge and was getting larger every day. There were groups in Nashville and Washington, D.C. that were devised just for the purpose of finding Evelyn. Megan actually had the audacity to tell the public to stop sending psychics and other tips to the hotline because law enforcement had to go through and follow up with each tip, and people were wasting their time with that nonsense. People were wasting law enforcement's time with their nonsense? What about Megan's nonsense of changing her story like people change their underwear? What about all the wild goose chases that she had sent them on? Every time she talked to authorities or the media, she had concocted some new story. And with every new story, the authorities had to follow up on it. It seems like Megan was wasting law enforcement's time more than anyone else. On the 25th of February, Megan was coming out of the police station and was stopped by a reporter from WCYB Channel 5. We all know by now that Megan loves the cameras, so of course, she talked. In this interview, she continued with the story that her mom had taken Evelyn and dropped her off with someone somewhere that Megan was not aware of. She said that she had come to the police station to take a polygraph so she could clear her name. Then, with a big smile on her face, said that due to policies, they were unable to give her the test. What were these policies that made it impossible for Megan to take a polygraph, you might ask? Well, according to Megan, it was because she was pregnant. First of all, there isn't anything anywhere that says you can't take a polygraph if you're pregnant. Second of all, this is all a lie. I'm sure you're shocked, right? Sullivan County said that they never offered for Megan to take a polygraph test. They don't even have the equipment there to do one if they wanted to. So, once again, Megan is telling lies, literally for no reason. And this brings us back to something we talked about earlier. Remember that application for the apartment that Megan and Hunter filled out, and they said there would be 3 occupants? Well, if you all thought the third person was Evelyn, you would be wrong. The third person was the new baby. When authorities asked Megan why Evelyn wasn't included on that application, she said it's because Hunter didn't want Evelyn to live with them. Did Megan think this makes her look like mom of the year? You start dating someone and decide to move in with him within a month and a half of meeting, and because he doesn't want your child to live with you guys as a family, you're okay with it? Sorry, Megan, that makes you a very, very shitty mom. Law enforcement had enough of Megan Boswell's bullshit at this point. Every day she told a different story. Law enforcement would spend their time and resources checking it out just to learn that it was another lie. Then she would go to the media and tell them a different lie or say that law enforcement wasn't doing everything they could. Meanwhile, Megan had done absolutely nothing to try to find her daughter. Also, the judge had ordered Megan to show proof of life for Evelyn, to which she had not done either. So, on the evening of February 25th, Megan Boswell was arrested and booked into the Sullivan County Jail for false reporting. Without finding Evelyn, that's all they had on her at the moment. Now, with her out of the way, they can stop going on wild goose chases because of Megan's stories, tell the media what was really going on, and hopefully find Evelyn. On February 27th, law enforcement executed a search warrant for the trailer that Megan had lived in on Sugar Hollow Road. They used luminol and ground penetrating radar to try to locate any hidden evidence. The only thing that was found was a stroller that had been left in the shed of the property, a stroller that belonged to Evelyn. Authorities talked to Megan one more time to see if they could get the truth out of her. And once again, her story changed. And what she told them this time proved she didn't care who she threw under the bus, as long as it kept her out of trouble. Megan was now blaming Hunter, though she did say it was an accident. She said that Evelyn was sleeping in the same bed as her and Hunter, and that Hunter had accidentally rolled over on her and suffocated her. She said that she held her deceased daughter all day, and then Hunter took the baby somewhere and disposed of her, telling Megan that she wasn't far away. Needless to say, nothing led them to believe that this story was true, and after looking into it, they realized it was just one more lie that Megan had told. After Megan was booked into the Sullivan County Jail, law enforcement never slowed down the search for Evelyn, but they were running out of people and options as to where she could be. Then, on March 6th, they got a call from Megan's dad, Tommy. He had been talking to his fiancee, Ashley, and suddenly remembered something. He had seen Megan's car backed up to one of the sheds on his property, either in late December or early January. He hadn't seen Megan herself, just her vehicle, but it looked like something was being unloaded from it. He thought maybe authorities should take a look inside the shed, as he had not used it or been in it for years. Authorities had brought cadaver dogs to Tommy's property on Muddy Creek Road and to the trailer park on Sugar Hollow, but nothing was found at the time. When the dogs were on Tommy's property, however, they never went down by Omami's trailer or the shed that was nearby. They focused more on Tommy's house at the top of the hill. Law enforcement wasted no time getting a search warrant and coming to the Boswell property to check out the shed. When they opened the doors, they were shocked. There was everything that you would ever need to care for a baby, just thrown carelessly around. Baby clothes, bottles, some with milk still in them, toys, medicine syringes, a baby swing. It had all been tossed in there like trash, like someone had no use for it anymore and just wanted it gone. So now they had found all of baby Evelyn's belongings, but the main question still remained: where was Evelyn? While at the compound on Muddy Creek Road, detectives decided to look into another structure right next door to the shed. It was a playhouse that had been built for Megan when she was a child. When they opened the doors, they found a cluttered mess just as they had in the shed. The only difference was that they could tell this stuff had been sitting in the playhouse for years because everything was covered in dust. That is, except for one thing that caught their attention: a white trash can with black trash bags piled in it. They were clean, no layers of dust on them like everything else in the shed, as if they hadn't been there for very long. Detective Brian Fraley lifted the first bag off of the top of the trash can, and that's when they smelled it. The distinct smell so many of them had experienced at crime scenes in the past. The smell of human decomposition. Also, after lifting the first trash bag, Brian saw a tiny leg and foot. It was partially mummified from exposure, and if not for the smell, Ryan might have assumed that it was a doll at first glance. When they realized that they had found a child's body, they stopped everything and waited for crime scene techs and the medical examiner to arrive. Once there, they removed the child from the trash can, one layer at a time, and with extreme caution and care. They also took multiple pictures as each layer was removed. The baby had been put in a trash bag, head first. There were multiple food items in the bottom of the trash, including eggs, cookies, cookie wrappers, and a loaf of bread. As they pulled the child out, they made another horrid discovery. Not only was the baby wrapped in a gray and white blanket, but her entire head was covered tightly in aluminum foil. She had been pressed down in the trash can so hard that her head had been bent backwards in an abnormal fashion, with her feet going in the opposite direction. Her body was basically in a backwards S position. Her face had been pressed so hard against the side of the trash can that her facial features were almost gone. They had to do an autopsy, but the age, size, and characteristics all matched those of baby Evelyn. 3 days after finding the baby in the playhouse on March 9th of 2020, Megan was in court. Although they hadn't identified the baby as Evelyn yet, her bond was raised to $150,000 and she was set to go before the grand jury in April of 2020. On March 11th of 2020, the autopsy report came back. The little girl found in the playhouse on the Boswell family compound was that of Evelyn Mae Boswell, who at the time she was reported missing would have been 15 months old, but was last seen when she was barely 12 months old. On August 19th, 2020, the grand jury came back with a decision in the case against Evelyn's mother. Megan Boswell was charged with 19 counts, which included 2 counts of felony murder, 1 count during the perpetration of aggravated child abuse, and 1 count during the perpetration of aggravated child neglect. 1 count of child abuse, 1 count of child neglect, 1 count of abuse of a corpse, 1 count of not reporting an unnatural death, and 12 counts of false reporting. She pleaded not guilty and her case was bound for trial. 5 years later, in February of this year, 2025, her case finally went to trial. Over the years, she had switched attorneys, which accounted for some of the delay. Also, last June of 2024, Megan was additionally charged with first-degree murder. Megan's trial lasted a total of 5 days. The prosecution, in their opening statement, told the jury that Megan threw Evelyn away like trash so that she could start a life with Hunter Wood, and that's what it seemed like happened. Friends and family testified to the last time that they had seen Evelyn and if Megan was a good mother. It seemed that the last person to see Evelyn was probably Sue Witten. After the first or second week of December, no one saw Evelyn again. Everyone admitted that Megan had been a good mother to Evelyn until the beginning of December when she started working at the chicken shack and met Hunter. That's when people started to notice Evelyn was dirty and had not been taken care of. There was also speculation that before killing Evelyn, that Megan had left her home alone in the trailer that they lived in while she went to the chicken shack to work and to hang out with Hunter. Needless to say, it seemed like the last few weeks of Evelyn's life was filled with neglect and abuse until Megan threw her away for good. We also found out in opening statements that Ethan Perry was not Evelyn's father. Megan has never set the record straight as to who her father was, but there have been rumors that Megan was sexually assaulted and her pregnancy resulted from that. But with Megan, you never know what is true because she has told so many lies. She had blamed so many people for Evelyn's disappearance, people that she was close to. However, if you noticed, she never blamed her dad or Omami. That's because she knew Evelyn was on that property and she didn't want authorities to look there. Hunter Wood wasn't there to testify at Megan's trial, but his dad Randy was. When asked about Hunter, it was revealed that he was currently in Virginia in a mental hospital. When asked when he started having mental struggles, his dad said to the court when he was accused of being a baby killer. His dad said there were some days that Hunter didn't even know who he was and that he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Well, Megan's lawyer, Gene Scott, started asking witnesses, such as the detectives, if they had looked into the reasoning behind the aluminum foil on Evelyn's head. Scott started asking if they had looked into people that were diagnosed with schizophrenia and other mental health issues and associated the foil on Evelyn's head with foil hats that schizophrenic people wear so that their thoughts aren't stolen or heard by their enemies. It was a way for Megan's attorney to try to point the finger at someone other than his own client. And once again, to try to place the blame on Hunter, a guy who had never even met the child and got caught up with the wrong girl and was now suffering mental health problems from it. So many people were the victims of Megan's lies, but little Evelyn was the biggest victim of all. Her mom threw her away like a piece of trash because she needed a break and was tired of raising her alone. It only took the jury 4 hours to come to a decision. They found Megan Boswell guilty on all charges. That same day, her attorney filed a motion for a new trial, but that didn't happen. The two sentences that could be handed down to Megan for the murder charges were life with parole or life without parole. And in Tennessee, it is the jury who recommends which one the defendant should get. In Megan's case, because of her age and no prior criminal history, the jury recommended life with parole. However, it's still ultimately up to the judge to decide. And he went with the jury and said that Megan would have a chance at parole after 51 years. But she still had to be sentenced for the remaining 16 charges. That was supposed to happen on May 22nd, but it was postponed and didn't happen until August 5th, 2025. Megan could have possibly been released at 69 years of age, but Judge Goodwin wasn't done with her yet. For all of the other 16 charges, she received an additional 33 years to run consecutively with the life sentence. Megan Boswell will most likely never be released from jail, unless, of course, she lives until the ripe old age of 102. Megan took the stand to make a statement, and all she did was deny what she had done to Evelyn and did not take any accountability, which could have been part of the reason for the harsh sentence. Megan said, quote, "I would just like to say that the state of Tennessee treated me very unfair during this whole investigation, and that had I had a fair trial and impartial jury, I would have been acquitted of the murder charges. I would never hurt my baby, and I did not kill anyone. That's all." End quote. When making his decision, Judge Goodwin said he had to determine how dangerous Megan was to society. He stated, "Is Megan Boswell, at 69 years of age coming out of prison, a risk to society? The only conclusion that I can come to after hearing the proof in this case, seeing how utterly unconcerned with the fact that she took the life of a 15-month-old child, her own child, the court has to answer that question as yes. The society does need to be protected from the evil that lurks in her." Evelyn got the justice she deserved, though no amount of justice will ever bring the beautiful little girl back. Evelyn will forever be remembered, unlike Megan, whom everyone will forget about eventually, and she'll rot in the concrete dungeon that she will be spending the rest of her life in. In 2021, Tennessee passed Evelyn's Law. This is a law that requires parents to report their child missing within 24 hours. It's ridiculous that that even needs to be a law, but apparently it does because of these monsters that claim to be parents, like Megan Boswell. For photos from this case, check out the victim's voice on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and come back in 2 weeks for a new case. Until then, stay safe and peace out.